The alien princess didn't expect to get pregnant by the human slave man. The crystal towers of Varellan trembled with the soft hum of the morning mind wave, the pulse that spread through the palace like a cosmic yawn. Servants snapped awake, advisors muttered through half-formed telepathic greetings, and somewhere in the vast shimmer of the East Wing, the princess tried very hard not to fling her ceremonial crown out the nearest anti-gravity window. It was too early. The council was already demanding her presence, and the palace carpets kept changing colors to reflect emotional harmony, which meant they were currently a shade of anxious purple. She sighed and straightened her posture, long ears twitching as if the universe itself were whispering a joke she hadn't quite caught. When she stepped into the living archives, she found a human servant crouched on the floor, staring at a grumpy orb of data light that was blinking red in agitation. He didn't notice her approach. He was too busy apologizing to the orb as if it were a delicate house pet. "Look, I didn't mean to reset your language protocol to aggressive poetry. It was an accident. Please stop threatening to compost me." The orb vibrated, hissed something in ancient Varellan verse, and floated away in what could only be described as offended elegance. The princess stifled a laugh, but a small snort escaped her anyway. The human jerked upright, startled, then tried to bow, overbalanced, and nearly collided with a column of floating scrolls. She had to catch him by the wrist before he brought down half the archive. He blinked up at her, cheeks red. "Morning, Your Radiance. I see the universe has chosen chaos as today's theme." She released him gently and tried to maintain royal composure, but the corners of her mouth betrayed her. Something about his crooked smile and hopeless attempts at fitting into palace life always managed to chase away the weight of protocol. It wasn't supposed to happen. She wasn't even supposed to look directly at him for too long, according to several very old, very humorless laws. But their conversations had slipped from formal to familiar, and their silence had begun to feel like a shared secret. She moved through the archives, tracing her fingers over the glowing spines of knowledge, and he followed at a respectful distance that occasionally wobbled when he tripped over nothing. He asked questions, humans always did, and she tried to answer without revealing how much she enjoyed the way he listened, earnest and wide-eyed. When he asked why the star at the center of their system pulsed twice every morning, she explained its unique cycle, half scientific, half spiritual, while he listened with the intensity of someone who believed the universe was speaking directly to him. And when he suggested the star might simply be stretching, she laughed again, louder this time, unheard by any princess in recorded Varellan history. Later, when she received the council's summons, irritation prickled through her chest, but he offered a sympathetic look. "If they give you trouble, just tell them a human sabotaged the crown, and you need a week off." She pretended to scold him, yet found herself reluctant to leave the archives, reluctant to step back into a world where her laughter was inappropriate and her every gesture was scrutinized. His presence clung to her thoughts, light but persistent, like a comet's glow that refused to fade. She endured the council meeting with the grace expected of her rank, though her mind kept drifting. Advisors droned about the star's slow dimming, about political unrest, about tradition and duty. She nodded where needed, but her ears trembled with the faint echo of the human's earlier joke about carpets, judging his emotional stability. When the meeting finally ended, she felt drained, hollowed out by expectation. Instead of returning to her chambers, she found her steps guiding her back toward the archives, drawn by something she was not yet willing to name. He was there, of course, trying to convince another orb that he wasn't a threat. "I promise I'm harmless. My most dangerous feature is my ability to trip on perfectly flat surfaces." The orb chimed doubtfully. She stood in the doorway watching him, unable to stop the warmth that rose inside her. It was foolish, it was dangerous, it was becoming impossible to ignore. When he noticed her, he straightened again, less clumsy this time, and offered a smile that made the palace's cold light feel almost gentle. She approached him slowly, as though stepping toward a truth she didn't want to disturb. They spoke softly, shared small jokes, navigated the thin line between propriety and something riskier. The palace lights dimmed for evening, and still neither of them moved away. Only when the last archive orb drifted off to store itself for the night Did she pull back, heart unsteady? She told him good night in a whisper softer than royal etiquette allowed. He answered with a bow that was almost graceful, almost perfect, except for the part where he misjudged the height of a floating shelf and bumped his head. She tried not to laugh, failed completely, and left the room with the sound lingering between them like a promise neither of them dared to touch. The morning mind wave rolled through the palace again, but this time it arrived with an odd stutter, like a cosmic hiccup. Lights flickered, floors hummed in confusion, and a few floating trays dropped their fruit in what looked like melodramatic protest. The princess paused midway through her stride, ears twitching at the glitching rhythm. Nothing in Varellan's systems ever malfunctioned, not unless the universe wanted attention. She whispered a quiet request for the palace to collect itself, and the nearest wall pulsed a sheepish shade of peach. When she entered the living archives, she found the human servant sitting cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by frustrated orbs that bobbed in tight circles above his head. He was trying to teach them a human card game, which made absolutely no sense to beings who communicated in pulses of pure data. "Okay," he said patiently, holding up a card with an exaggerated flourish. "This is a king. Very important. Kind of like your council, except the rules actually make sense." One orb flickered indignantly and zapped his sleeve with a static spark. He yelped and tossed the card into the air, where it immediately disintegrated into glitter. "Right. Not card game fans." "Noted." She tried to keep her lips still, but the laugh won. The orb spun toward her in greeting, and the human scrambled to his feet, brushing glitter off himself as if it were toxic. "Your radiance. Don't worry, I wasn't corrupting the archives, just enriching their cultural portfolio." His grin wavered, charming and hopeless. She pretended to inspect the orbs, though she was really just hiding the smile tugging at her discipline. Their harmless glow soothed her nerves, but her gaze kept drifting back to him. The way he fumbled yet persisted, the way he filled the cavernous archive with warmth simply by existing. It was becoming difficult to hold her distance. A low chime rippled across the hall, the sound of a system alert resonating through the crystal architecture. The orbs froze in perfect unison. He stiffened. She felt a ripple of dread, followed by that same strange tug in her chest she'd been pretending not to notice for days. The palace rarely issued alerts unless something truly extraordinary was brewing. A nearby archive panel lit up with cascading symbols. He leaned close, squinting at it. "Is that Varellan script for everything is fine, or definitely panic?" She brushed her hand over the panel, and the symbols resolved into a calm but urgent message from the Star Monitoring Division. The central star's pulse had become irregular again, a sign of instability, perhaps even acceleration of its collapse cycle. She relayed the summary aloud, and he winced. So, closer to definitely panic, then. She tried to lighten the mood. Only a little panic. A dignified, royal amount. He nodded gravely. "Excellent. I can do dignified panic. I'll flail in slow motion." But behind their banter, something unsettled her. The star's behavior had been changing faster than predicted, and though her people trusted ancient cycles, she sensed an unseen current pushing events out of rhythm, as if the cosmos were adjusting itself, preparing for something. She dismissed the orbs and let him out of the archives, reasoning that a malfunctioning star was a poor time for him to be fried by experimental data light. They walked through the crystalline corridors, each step echoing in soft chimes. He tried to walk with the solemnity expected of palace staff, but the floor suddenly shifted into a serene teal, the palace's attempt at emotional encouragement, and he tripped again. She caught his arm before he sprawled across a diplomatic mural. "Your radiance," he muttered into his palms. "Is it normal for architecture to judge me?" "Completely normal," she said. "It judges everyone. You are simply more expressive in your interactions." A brief, shared silence followed, warm and deliberate, and far too intimate for a princess and a human slave. She should have stepped back. Instead, she found her hand lingering a heartbeat too long on his sleeve. He noticed. She felt him notice. And that was the moment she finally admitted, privately and dangerously, that her fondness for him was no longer the harmless curiosity she'd pretended it was. They continued toward the observatory, where she was expected to make a formal assessment of the star's fluctuations. He accompanied her only because she insisted he carry a set of scanning prisms, though he nearly dropped all of them when the lift surged upward with unnecessary enthusiasm. "Does the lift always accelerate like it's trying to impress someone?" he gasped. She shrugged. "It likes to feel important." When the doors opened, the observatory revealed its vast dome of light glass, giving full view of the central star burning a dimmer gold than usual. The pulse rolled across the dome's surface in uneven waves. She placed her hand on the control panel, feeling the star's rhythm resonate through the palace's living architecture. He hovered beside her, holding the prisms, trying to look helpful and definitely failing. For a moment they stood in silence, gazing at the ancient heart of the empire. Its flicker seemed personal somehow, like a secret shared. He whispered, "It looks tired." She exhaled softly. Stars do not tire easily. When they do, something is shifting. Another pulse trembled against the dome, irregular and tense. Then, without warning, the entire palace shook, not violently, but sharply enough that he stumbled against her. She steadied him again, but this time neither of them stepped apart quickly. A flush warmed her cheeks. His breath caught. They were too close, too aware. The palace lights dimmed temporarily, as though trying to give them privacy. He pulled back first, flustered. "Sorry. The universe keeps throwing me at you. I swear I'm not doing it on purpose." She should have dismissed him. She should have returned to protocol and order and cold royal distance. Instead she whispered, "I know." And her heart, traitorous thing, beat in sync with the star's trembling light. The alert faded. The star stabilized. But an invisible threshold had already been crossed, one neither of them spoke of as they descended the lift, side by side, quieter than before. The palace seemed to watch them, curious, suspicious, almost eager. Later that night, as she lay awake beneath her chamber's soft glow, she replayed the brush of his shoulder, the warmth of his voice, the hush of the observatory. Her ears trembled with a confusion she couldn't name. Outside, the star pulsed once, irregular again, like a warning or a promise, and she felt its echo deep inside her, unsettling and undeniable. The palace corridors whispered strange harmonics the next morning, as if gossiping among themselves. Panels flickered, floors rippled underfoot, and the scent of ionized crystal hung in the air like a secret waiting to burst. The princess walked through the shifting light, with her thoughts knotted tight, replaying every too long glance and every too close moment from the observatory. Her heart had no interest in being reasonable. Her mind did. Her ears, traitorous things, twitched at every memory. She entered the archives expecting to find the human knee-deep in trouble again, and she was not disappointed. He stood on a floating ladder, wrestling with a storage compartment that refused to open. "On 3, he muttered at the panel. 1, 2. The compartment opened early, smacking him in the forehead. The ladder wobbled. He flailed like a startled bird. The princess caught him with a burst of telekinetic force, so instinctive she didn't realize she'd done it until he floated gently back to the ground. He blinked, dazed. "Your radiance, am I dead?" She released the energy with a cough. "No, the palace simply considers you fragile." He rubbed his forehead, squinting at her. "I prefer delicately constructed." Much more dignified. She almost smiled. Almost. A dangerous habit. Before she could respond, the archives hummed with a tone she'd never heard. The orbs rose to attention, forming a loose perimeter around them, pulsing with alert light. A projection shimmered into existence, a message from the Star Monitoring Division showing the latest pulse patterns. The star cycles were accelerating again, but this time the fluctuations had a strange resonance embedded within them, like a heartbeat layered under cosmic static. She tilted her head, listening deeper, her ears vibrating with a subtle recognition that unsettled her. He peered at the projection. "So, this is either good news, or the universe laughing at us again." She frowned. "The universe does not laugh." He pointed at the data. "That looks like laughter." She sighed. "You spend too much time personifying cosmic forces." He shrugged. "Helps me cope with impending doom." The projection expanded suddenly, showing a map of energy ripples throughout the palace. The princess traced the pattern, noticing a strange thread connecting the star's pulse to the palace's systems, and then, alarmingly, to her own biometric signature. She felt heat crawl up her neck. That couldn't be right. He saw her expression and stepped closer. What does that mean? Because your face says concerning, but your ears say very concerning. She swallowed. The system appears to be registering interference. For me. His eyes widened. You're interfering with a star? She took a sharp breath. I am not interfering. It is simply resonating. He lifted his palms in surrender. Right. Resonating. Totally normal princess activity. The archive's central orb approached, blinking insistently, as if urging her to run diagnostics on herself. She waved it away. She didn't need diagnostics. She needed time, distance, clarity, things she had not possessed since the moment he stumbled into her life, with wide eyes and terrible balance. She ordered him to accompany her to the palace infirmary. Though she did her best to sound less panicked than she felt, he followed beside her, trying to lighten the mood. If the diagnosis involves me being haunted by angry storage compartments, I'd like to request a second opinion. She forced a soft laugh. No one is diagnosing you. Good, he said, because I have enough problems. The palace infirmary scanned her with soft beams of violet light, measuring energy signatures, cataloging anomalies, offering absolutely no explanation she wanted to hear. The readings were inconsistent, unstable, intertwined with the star's pulse in ways that defied everything she'd been taught. The healer drones circled her with chirping confusion. One attempted to scan the human as well, but it gave up after he sneezed directly at it and short-circuited its polite composure. When the drones finally hovered back, they projected a single cryptic summary: elevated resonance, unknown cause, increasing amplitude. The human squinted at it. So, you're humming at the universe? She exhaled slowly. It is not humming. It is alignment. Possibly. He nodded solemnly. Right. Alignment. Definitely sounds like humming, though. They left the infirmary together, the tension between them growing thick enough to trip over, which he promptly did. She caught him again, fingers curling around his wrist with familiarity she wasn't ready to acknowledge. He did not pull away. Worse, she didn't either. As they made their way back through the shimmering corridors, a low rumble spread through the palace. Not a quake, not an alert, something deeper, a shift in the very air. The star pulsed with unnatural rhythm again, sending a tremor through her bones that felt uncomfortably like recognition. The human grabbed a railing. Okay, that one felt personal. She steadied herself, ears trembling. Something is changing. He tried to joke. I vote we change it back. She didn't laugh this time. The rumble faded, but its echo clung to her skin, lingering like a whisper. She could sense the palace watching her, analyzing her, questioning her. She could sense the star calling, faint but insistent, like a pulse that belonged both to the universe and to her. And beneath it all, she felt a pull to him, to the impossible path opening beneath their feet. She told him to return to the archives for safety, her tone firmer than intended. He hesitated. Are you sure? Because you look like you're about to wrestle the cosmos, and I feel obligated to supervise. She turned away before he could see her expression crumble. Go, please. He obeyed, reluctantly, glancing back every few steps until the corridor swallowed him whole. She remained alone beneath the dimming palace lights, hand pressed to her racing heart, breath unsteady as the star's pulse echoed through her veins. Whatever was happening, it was only beginning. The palace lights dimmed again as she walked, not fading fully this time, but flickering with a strange hesitation, as if the living architecture were unsure how bright the hallways ought to be around her. Each pulse from the central star throbbed faintly beneath her skin, matching her heartbeat with unnerving precision. She tried to steady her breathing. She tried to slow her thoughts. Neither obeyed. By the time she reached the observatory, the dome had shifted into full diagnostic mode. Panels expanded like unfolding wings. Streams of data spiraled along the walls, and the star glowed in uneven pulses. She stepped inside and felt the vibration run through her bones again, softer this time, but undeniably directed at her. She whispered an order for the palace to isolate the anomaly, but the dome merely pulsed back at her in mild confusion. The palace was trying to understand her as much as she was trying to understand herself. She pressed her hand to the control panel, letting the energy wash through her. The resonance snapped into place for a moment, like a lock clicking. She gasped and jerked her hand away, shaking her fingers. The panel dimmed as if apologizing. "You're not helping," she muttered. The palace hummed in defensive indignation. She took another breath and tried again, slower this time. The star's pulse matched hers once more, but she braced for it, absorbing the rhythm instead of fighting it. Beneath the roaring cosmic cadence, she heard something smaller, a faint echo, delicate and impossible, like another heartbeat intertwined with her own. She froze. That was not her imagination. That was not the star. That was something else entirely. A voice startled her from behind. "You're glowing." She spun to find the human leaning in the doorway, panting slightly as if he'd run the entire length of the palace. "And before you say anything, yes, I know I wasn't supposed to follow you, but the archives literally pushed me out and locked themselves, which is rude, considering I apologized to them this morning." Her ears flushed with a sharp jolt of panic. "You shouldn't be here." He stepped inside anyway, hands raised in surrender. "Every time someone says that to me, something weird is happening, so I'm guessing this is one of those times." She opened her mouth, closed it again, and focused on the dome instead. He moved to stand beside her, just close enough that she felt his presence crackle against her skin. The star pulsed again, once slow, once fast, and the echo inside her pulsed with it. She swallowed hard. He squinted at the shifting data. "So, is the star flirting with you? Because that's the vibe I'm getting." She groaned softly. "Please stop talking." "Can't," he replied. "Panic humor is my most developed skill." She almost laughed, and that made everything worse. The warmth she felt around him, the resonance linking them, the impossible echo growing stronger inside her. It was all spiraling toward a truth she wasn't ready to voice. She tried to step away, but the dome flickered and locked them in place with a soft energy barrier. He blinked. Did the room just parent us? She slapped a hand over her eyes. Of course it would malfunction now. The barrier shimmered, making it very clear neither of them were leaving until the palace felt like releasing them, which meant the palace believed this moment mattered. She faced him fully, forcing her breathing to steady. "There is something I must tell you." His eyes widened. "You're not breaking up with me, right? Because that would be impressive, considering we're not in a relationship." She let out a sharp breath. "This is not that." "Good," he said. "I'm terrible at breakups. I once ended things with someone and accidentally congratulated them." Despite herself, she smiled. The star pulsed again, stronger. The echo inside her answered. She flinched at the sensation, hand pressing to her abdomen before she could stop it. His attention snapped instantly to the gesture. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head. "No, just surprised." He stepped closer, worry crumpling his brow. "Then what's wrong?" For a moment she couldn't speak. She simply stared at him, at the ridiculous, earnest human who tripped through life like gravity personally disliked him, who managed to make her laugh even when the universe trembled, who somehow had become the center of her thoughts without permission. She heard that echo again, faint, soft, insistent. Her voice came out low, almost a whisper. "Something is happening to me. To us." He blinked. "Us? I'm part of this. Oh stars, am I dying? Did I catch a cosmic flu?" She stepped forward and took his hand, the gesture shocking them both into silence. His eyes widened. The star pulsed. The echo pulsed. Her ears trembled with the weight of truth. "You didn't catch anything," she whispered. "You contributed." He stared at her, blinked, blinked again. Contributed? Like volunteered? Was there a form I forgot to sign? She squeezed his hand. "I am trying to tell you something very important. Something impossible. Something that has already begun." The room dimmed, sensing the gravity of her words. The star's pulse softened into a steady thrum, almost gentle. He swallowed. "Okay, I'm listening." She took one last breath, releasing the truth she could no longer hide. "There's a life inside me." He froze. A beat of silence. Then, in a strangled whisper, "Oh stars! Did I do that?" The room felt too small for the silence that followed, even with its cathedral-high dome and endless swirl of starlight. He stood frozen, mouth half open, mind clearly trying to assemble thoughts with the efficiency of a malfunctioning food synthesizer. She waited, heart pounding, ears trembling in a way that would have embarrassed her if the moment weren't already beyond the reach of dignity. Finally he spoke. "So when you said resonance, you meant the very permanent, very biological kind?" She nodded. He ran a hand through his hair. "Right. Okay. So I contributed. And now there's someone in there. Someone tiny. And probably judging me already." Despite her nerves, she laughed. "If they inherited anything from you, judgment is unlikely. Clumsiness, perhaps." "Great," he groaned. "A child who will trip in zero gravity. Perfect." But humor couldn't shield them from the truth pressing against the air. A child between species. A child that should not exist. A child whose presence the star itself seemed to acknowledge. The energy barrier around them dissolved at last, as if the palace had heard enough. The dome brightened, bathing them in gold. He looked at her with something she had never seen in him before. Not fear, but awe, shaky and sincere. "What do we do?" he whispered. She exhaled, feeling the question settle into her chest like a stone and a beacon at once. "We face it. Together." He gave a short, nervous laugh. "You make it sound easy." "It is not easy," she said, "but it is ours." The next hours unfolded like a storm wrapped in ceremony. The council summoned her the moment the palace relayed her anomalous readings. They demanded explanations. They demanded conformity. They demanded the fate of the man who now stood at her side, refusing to shrink even when surrounded by telepathic elites, glowing with judgment. One counselor hissed, "This threatens the purity of our line." Another snapped, "This child should never have been conceived." He whispered beside her, "Wow, they're really leaning into the dramatic phrasing today." She took his hand, openly, defiantly, and the room gasped. Her voice echoed through the crystal chamber, stronger than she felt. "The child is mine, and he is the father, and no decree, no tradition, no fear will erase that truth." "We will decide what is erased," the Empress said from her throne, her presence like carved starlight. The room fell silent. Her mother studied her with an unreadable expression. Her pulse hammered in her ears. She feared rejection. She feared wrath. She feared losing him. But the Empress finally exhaled and spoke with weary clarity. "The star responds to the life you carry. It has already begun to rewrite our destiny. To deny what exists is to deny the will of the cosmos." Several counselors sputtered. One fainted. He whispered, "Is fainting contagious? Because I might join him." The Empress rose from her throne and approached her daughter, eyes softening in a way few ever witnessed. "You have changed, child of mine. You are not the princess I shaped. You are something new." She glanced at the human. "And you have brought chaos to our order. An impressive feat." He bowed weakly. "Thank you. I think." The Empress touched her daughter's cheek. "What grows inside you is no threat. It is a beginning." And just like that, the fate of their world shifted. In the days that followed, the star stabilized for the first time in years. Its pulse synced to hers, balanced and steady, no longer trembling toward collapse. The palace stopped flickering. The corridors hummed with cautious hope. Whispers spread through the kingdom, stories of a hybrid heir, of an ancient cycle broken, of a future unbound by bloodline law. Some rebel groups quieted, seeing proof of change. Others grew louder, calling for broader freedom beyond palace walls. She granted it. Slowly, deliberately. For the first time, humans were assigned roles by skill instead of servitude. The archives even began teaching him to open compartments without head trauma, though progress was slow. One evening, as golden light spilled through the observatory, he stood beside her watching the star breathe in its renewed rhythm. "I still can't believe any of this," he murmured. "A month ago I was battling angry orbs and losing." "You are still battling angry orbs," she said. "You simply lose less dramatically now." He chuckled. then looked at her stomach with a dazed expression. Do you think they can hear me yet? She smirked. I hope not. You are not ready for that level of responsibility. He placed a tentative hand there anyway. Hey, tiny you. Or tiny me. Or a tiny, very confusing combination. We're figuring this out. Just don't inherit my clumsiness. Please. She leaned her head on his shoulder, feeling the warmth of him, the strange rightness of it. They will inherit what they need. He wrapped an arm around her, gentle and sure. And what about you? Are you okay with all this? She thought of the girl she'd been, bound by duty, burdened by protocol, shaped by expectations. That girl had followed rules carved in crystal. This woman followed a resonance written in blood and starlight. I am no longer who I was, she said softly. And I am glad. He smiled, relief washing over his features. Good, because I like this you. The star pulsed once, bright and steady, as if in agreement. Outside the dome, the kingdom changed day by day, sometimes with grace, sometimes with clumsy missteps that reminded her fondly of him. But progress took root. Unity grew. And through it all, the life inside her grew too, pulsing with possibility. When the first whispers of unrest sparked again, she faced them without fear. She faced them with him. Together, they stood stronger than the laws that once forbade them, stronger than the doubts that once silenced her, stronger than the star that had nearly collapsed under the weight of an ancient cycle. The path ahead was uncertain, full of risks and questions and difficult futures, but it was theirs. Shared, claimed, chosen. And in the quiet of the observatory, beneath the glow of a star reborn, she felt the echo of that tiny heartbeat again and whispered, We will build a world for you, one where you do not have to fear being different. He squeezed her hand. And if you inherit my balance issues, he added solemnly, we'll build stairs with extra padding. She laughed, truly, fully, the sound ringing brighter than the dome's crystals. The star pulsed with her. The future answered, and the story closed on a beginning neither species could have imagined.